Hello and welcome to Let's Level Design. Thought this would be a fun show to do because I am currently in the pre-production for a level I'm designing, which will eventually go into my professional portfolio. And I thought it might be, some good times, fun times, if I recorded the entire process as documentation, and so I can get some feedback from you, the viewer. Because, it's Let's Level Design together! And who knows, this video might end up in my actual portfolio. Since I'm gonna walk you through the process of how to actually level design, which I am by no means a professional yet, but this is me working towards that goal because I do want to be a professional level designer or game designer in general. But at this point in my career, I'm leaning heavily towards level design, so I thought it'd be fun to kind of record it. And who knows, you might learn something, and I might learn something. So yeah, feel free to give me any suggestions you'd like or whatnot. I'm going to run through the tools during this, but this isn't really meant to be like, this is how you use Photoshop, or this is how you use StarCraft 2 Galaxy Editor, which we will be using, as you can see here. To actually create the map, we're just going to go through the pre-production today, which I've already started, as you can see from this document. So this is what you go through when you're designing a map, everybody, in case you're ever wondering. So this is the template that I'm following. I'm sure there's other ways you can do it, as there are for pretty much anything when it comes to game design. But I find this helpful to use, which I will be uploading to my actual portfolio. I don't know if I'm going to link to it or not as of right now. Though, since I wasn't sure, I decided to just record it so you can kind of get a feel for it. Like, you set it out, you begin with the game type up at the top. So for this instance, we're going to be making a single-player StarCraft 2 campaign map. And it's going to technically be an RTS, but the feel I'm going for with this map is the small squad-based maps, which I don't remember ever being one in StarCraft 2. Remember, there were a couple of these in StarCraft 1 where it'd be like some kind of... It always felt like a spaceship type level because everything was all metal, and it'd be like you'd control a Jim Raynor, and then you'd eventually get other Marines and stuff as you played throughout the map. So I kind of want to capture that feel, and it's going to be more like that rather than the micro-win, and you have to do base management and macros in order to complete the level, which is the traditional RTS experience. And of course, we're going to be using StarCraft 2 Galaxy Editor in StarCraft 2 in order to do it. So once you get through your little game type, you come down to your story, which I created a very elaborate backstory because one thing I always thought was interesting is that Sarah Kerrigan from StarCraft and StarCraft 2 is one of the main central characters. She eventually becomes the antagonist. She becomes the leader of the Zerg. And so she's a huge part of the StarCraft world, but we don't really get to see her as a ghost or human before she gets infested and becomes a Zerg. Spoilers. In case you've never played StarCraft. So I apologize. But moving on, in StarCraft 1, you only get to play as Kerrigan as a ghost in 3 levels before Arcturus Minx stabs her in the back and leaves her for dead, and she turns into a Zerg. And so I thought it might be neat to explore her story before that happens, and I did a bunch of research into it to see if there was any documentation or a biography for what life was like before the events of StarCraft 1. And there were some things, but it wasn't heavily detailed, and so I feel like the story I created could fit between that time period between when she was a soldier for the Terran Confederacy and the events of StarCraft 1. I almost said when she joined the Korhal's rebellion, but this takes place after she joins the Sons of Korhal and they're rebelling against the Terran Confederacy, because there's a huge backstory where Kerrigan assassinates Arcturus Minx's father, and so that creates all this tension, and eventually Minx hunts down all the ghosts and kills them except for Kerrigan because of some shenanigans, and he's like, "Yo, work for me to pay off, like for retribution." And he removes some kind of thing from her brain, which then she's like, "Sure, I'd love to work for you. I hate the Confederacy for some reason." But regardless, I thought it'd be kind of a nice story area to explore in the StarCraft universe, because StarCraft is one of my favorite games of all time. And, it's one of the first real testaments of the immense powerhouse and almost perfection of game design and game delivery and mechanics that any company has ever delivered, which is why Blizzard is one of the greatest companies ever. In case you needed any more reason to love Blizzard, which I'm sure anybody and everybody is in love with Blizzard, because how could you not be? So, what the map is about is that Kerrigan leads a team of 2 other ghosts, and then in parentheses I put a bunch of things because I'm going to be turning this into my professor, and he's never played StarCraft, and so I wanted to give him a bunch of backstory so it would make sense. So that's why there's so many things in parentheses, because he has no idea what's going on, and I want him to understand the reason behind everything in the map. So anyways, so you have Kerrigan and 2 other ghosts, and you're on like this covert spec op mission to dismantle Terran Confederacy base that's hidden in this jungle on some planet. And I went into further details, like on how you came to understand where the base was and why you're going here. But anyways, what you're going to happen is the player is going to start in a quarter map. They have to traverse to this quote-unquote hidden Confederacy base. And there's going to be guards that patrol. You're going to set up 2 different tracks. One is more of a sneakier way to go, and the other one is more of a head-on approach. And the main goal is that the player needs to sabotage the central core of the base because it's producing advanced military weapons, and once the player does that, then it'll cripple the Terran Confederacy and help out the Sons of Korhal's rebellion, which helped them rise to power in StarCraft 1, because that is what happens. The Sons of Korhal overthrow the Terran Confederacy, which sets the stage for StarCraft 2, because Arcturic Minx, the leader of the Sons of Korhal rebellion, then becomes a dictator and is a huge jerk to everybody, which causes a problem in StarCraft 2 and the end of StarCraft 1. Anyway, so once the player starts traversing, they're going to have side objectives, such as keeping all 3 of the ghosts alive and staying undetected the entire time, because ghosts can cloak, which means they turn invisible, in case you didn't know. And one of the other main objectives is that Sarah Kerrigan must survive the mission. And as the player explores, depending on which route they take, they'll end up discovering one of 3 side bits of information / story elements, which will trigger another optional objective, which is to recover all 3 pieces of information or data, which will lead to like a prototype weapon, some schematics, and then also experimentation that the base has been conducting on infesting Terran civilians, kind of as a foreshadowing of Kerrigan's eventual infestation into becoming the Queen of Blades in StarCraft and StarCraft 2. Another element that's going to be in the map is that there will be a timer, and I haven't decided what the exact time is going to be yet, so maybe you can help me with that, or I'll just figure it out once we're into the actual mechanics part of building a level. But there's going to be a timer, and that is like the evac timer. Once it hits 0, then the evac shuttle will come and pick up the team. But if the player doesn't reach it in time, which if they do every single objective, like gather the 3 side objectives, and they remain undetected, so all that stuff, there won't be enough time for that. So that's gonna be one of the elements we're gonna have to build into the level and have to be mindful of when we're creating it. So it makes it impossible. If the player wants to complete everything, then they can't make to the evac site in time, which is gonna be on the other side of the base or behind it. And so Minx is like, oh, I gotta leave you here because it's not, you missed it. And then so Kerrigan's like, you jerk, Minx, you're betraying us and whatnot. And then, so then the player has to go on and leave the map, which would transition to the next level in the campaign, but we're only going to be making this one level because we want it to be super polished and be portfolio worthy. So there's going to be one level, but that's when it would transition to the next level. However, if the player doesn't do that stuff and they make it to the site within the allotted time amount, like before the timer runs out, then we're still going to have a trigger where Minx is like, oh, the landing zone is too hot or whatever. Like, there's too many guards, we're going to get shot down, we can't do it. Meet at the extraction site B, and the characters will make a remark like, we cleared everything out, what is he talking about, this seems super fishy, and they'll still move on to the next level. So no matter what, the evac shuttle does not pick them up, which foreshadows Arcturus's eventual backstabbing of Kerrigan, leaving her for dead, thus being infested by Zerg, becoming a queen of blades. So we got those foreshadowing elements, which I thought was cool, which will give a nice, fan service to people for StarCraft. So it's kind of this backstory, kind of prologue, and it foreshadows to what happens in the actual games. So I thought that would be a cool tie-in to, like, possibly being canon-ish, even though, it's fan-made level, so why would it be considered canon? But I just wanted it to fit in there. This is just kind of my design thinking and how I wanted this to play out and feel like and look like. And then, so to answer all these questions, I kind of skimmed over the entire story and the gameplay with that huge spiel that I just gave you, so hopefully you can read it on your screen, go back and pause it or whatnot. So after you go through your story and your gameplay, which part of pre-production, which is what this is you need to have like concept sketches and whatnot, which if you're not an artist or you don't work with an artist or don't know an artist, the best place to go is to just Google what you want. So I googled things like StarCraft, jungle level, single unit StarCraft maps, hidden jungle base, and I think I did like Predator jungle, because those are the kind of ideas or themes or atmospheres I'm going for. So I came across several pictures, which will lead into visuals. So we got these two custom pieces of art, which I did give credit for down here in the references prior art, because they're not my artwork, so the artist should get all the credit for their hard work. So, which is totally fine. It's not like I'm not selling this, so I'm not, breaching copyright. It's just, go to Google to get your ideas so you can have pictures. But if you can draw, if you have time to draw, and if you work for a company where there's artists, they're going to do the art for you. Or you can ask them to do it for you. You can do it for yourself. But I only have 3 weeks to do this, and I'm not going to spend... And it would take me all 3 weeks to do something this good of artwork. So that's why you go to Google to get your concept art. So we got like the squad of Marines in the jungle, like swampy area. Same thing, we got Kerrigan with some guys. So it kind of has the same feel that I'm going for. And then we have these jungle bases that I found and some other artwork that kind of goes along with that. It's just this jungle feel is what I'm going for. And that's the kind of atmosphere. So again, you just go through the visuals, what it's going to look like, what's going to happen, any kind of custom things you're going to do. So I'm going to have to make custom units, which will be based on actual units in the editor, but you can create your own custom units by, you like copy and paste them, and then you change their stats, and you can change their names and stuff, which is what we're going to be doing later on, but not today. And that's it for the first half of pre-production, which includes the actual documentation of it. Now the other half that we're going to go through today is creating the actual paper map. Which you can do on actual paper, you can do it with graph paper, but we're going to use Photoshop today, boys and girls. It's going to be amazing.